Israeli media makes things up.
When the population has always had a calorie surplus.
Yeah, even the diet part.
Calorie surplus.
They literally have. That's why when the famine started, when all the people were moved, I believe it was UNRWA that made the statement that this is a region that has never experienced hunger before.
That's what's so infuriating.
And that's also why Finkelstein got mad, because if you try to cite, really, wait, these people are starving? By what metric? You can't find
that's what's so infuriating, Stephen, is that you want to start counting calories and try to discover whether they have a surplus or not, when you're missing the fact that Israel getting to decide what food gets into Gaza is itself outrageous. Right. One people does not get to control whether another side gets to have cookies for their children or potato chips or sodas. You don't get to do that. That's a level of dominance and oppression that is unacceptable.
But you're not capable of having it because you won't even admit why the blockade exists. So you don't even deserve to be in that.
What do you want him to admit? What do you want him to admit?
Why is there a blockade in Gaza?
Yeah, you tell
me. Why is there a blockade in Gaza?
When you look at the fact that Israel is preventing cookies from going into Gaza, you know that it's not motivated by military.
Why were cookies being prevented from going in?
And
what were custom rockets fueled with?
Yeah, with cookies? Yeah.
With sugar and fertilizer. Yes, that's how they made the early rockets. The first generation that was literally
deny Palestinians in Gaza sugar because it might be used.
First of all, they're not allowed back in because they use more sophisticated rockets. But again, he's not going to admit it. I just want to be clear another time. Another thing you're not going to admit. Why does the blockade exist? It's literally just because of the evil Jews trying to kill the Amalekite.
Hamas fighters breathe air too. Maybe Israel can restrict air from going into Gaza to make sure that Hamas.
But he's saying then the burden should be on Hamas not to use.
No, Palestinians have no agency.
No.
Rape is the language of the oppressed.
They
can't help themselves.
You don't punish a civilian population to get at military ones. You don't punish civilian populations.
Like indiscriminately shooting tens of thousands of rockets decade after decade into Israel, like what Hamas does?
The scale
punishing
of
the
Israeli
civilian population, like selling some of the humanitarian food back to the population.
Just want to make sure.
Digging up tunnels of water pipes and using them to fashion rockets.
Just want to make sure.
Taking all the international aid that comes in and building tunnels and tunnels of cement.
Stephen, did you say that Hamas is turning cookies into missiles?
My understanding is the reason for the restricting of sugar-based products was that the first generation, I think they were called Qassam rockets, were built in really crude shops using combinations of fertilizer and sugars that they would use.
Do you know what the primary component of Hamas explosives is now?
I'm pretty sure now they use more sophisticated stuff, but I don't know. You tell me.
Unexploded Israeli bombs, because they've dropped so many. Over the last decade.
I doubt that's true. I'm sure they do.
With a 10 to 20% failure rate, Hamas then digs them up. The Yasin 105s that you see, blowing up all these Israeli tanks, primarily fueled by Israeli explosives.
But I doubt the majority of them are.
But I'm
sure there's some amount.
But
also, again, just to reiterate,
more so than cookies.
You're not going to tell me. Well, that's why cookies are no longer. Why does the blockade exist?
I'm going to tell you why the blockade exists.
Okay.
And the reason, by the way, why it includes banning cookies and soda pop and potato chips.
Yes, the Oreos aren't going into the Gaza Strip.
No, I'm sure it's very funny denying children the ability to eat chocolates and toys because they are Palestinian and not Israeli. That's just so incredibly trivial. Incredibly trivial.
The emotional appeals.
And potato chips.
It's working. We're two more virtue signals away from a free Palestinian people. Keep going.
It's you trivializing. If it was the other way around, if Hamas was imposing a siege on Israel in which Israeli children were not allowed to do any of that stuff, you would not be sitting here making light of it. It would not be trivial to you because you understand that Israelis are human beings and their children deserve to eat potato chips,
Jewish
and soda
people.
pops.
Sorry, hold on. How many Jewish people live in Arab countries around the world?
I don't know the number.
They all left. How many? When we talk about the Nakba and the expulsion of Jews, how many Jews lived in the West Bank after 48?
Thank you for the deflection.
I didn't deflect. I'm just answering your.
Let him answer about why the blockade exists.
He's not. He's got to do the 52 different talking points first.
The blockade exists.
Oh my God. Okay.
The blockade exists because they want to punish the civilian population in Gaza as a means of putting pressure on Hamas. They're saying as long as we have a government in Gaza that does not play ball with Israel the way the Palestinian Authority plays ball with Israel in the West Bank, the civilian population is going to suffer as a means of putting pressure on them and getting somebody else to be in power. The evidence for that is overwhelming. Children's toys were not allowed in at the beginning of the blockade. And when Israel came under intense pressure after the flotilla incident, a bunch of activists tried to basically force medicines to be delivered into Gaza.
So on the flotilla incident, there were 2 of 5 of the ships were empty, and they were aggressive ships that were designed to fight against the IDF when they landed. You realize that footage is available. There's 100-some people on the deck with chairs throwing Israeli soldiers overboard. And makeshift weapons and everything too.
Makeshift weapons. Wow.
Yeah, I know. Well, that was all they could bring from Turkey with them, I guess, because they were inspecting the boats. But those were not peaceful activist ships. And if you read any of the reports, if you open more than a Finkelstein book and read what actually happened or watch any of the footage that actually happened,
were on that flotilla.
Were they part of the fighters, or what? Were they?
Listen to yourself. Listen to
myself. What? You can watch the videos.
There were people who, fought back when Israel boarded their ship in an act of piracy in international waters.
Why did Israel border the ship?
because they don't want ships to get to Gaza.
There you go, because there's a blockade and because they announced you need to stop.
They don't get to impose that blockade.
They absolutely do.
No more than Hamas gets to impose a blockade on Israel. This is ridiculous. Of course they don't get to decide what ships get to go.
I want to reiterate by the end here. He's saying that the blockade exists because the Jews are evil to...
No, he's saying they're intentionally...
That's a despicable thing to say.
Really?
I'm not saying anything about Jews. I'm talking about the Israeli government policy being absolutely horrendous.
I'm curious. In the second Intifada, were submersibles or weapons brought in via that via the water into the Gaza Strip? Did that happen?
What are you talking? Say that one more time.
Were there weapons that were shipped into the Gaza Strip via the Mediterranean?
And plenty of weapons were shipped into Israel as well.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Wait,
one
so do you
side
think
gets
the
to dominate
blockade,
the other?
why is it that Egypt has been a partner with Israel in that blockade since its inception as well?
I've already explained to you why the Egyptian government is interested in restricting
because for 20 years they've just been evil. Yes. Okay. Everybody this is consistent, at least with the history, that everybody is collaborators with the West and
governments that are transparently collaborating with the West
has hypnotized the world. Even the Egyptian dictators or everybody. Yes,
I just
want to say something. Honestly, there's one thing that I think is really, really important. This, just saying the Jews are evil. It's such a despicable line, and let me explain why. Anti-Semitism is a very, very serious and rising problem in the country, in many other places around the world, and especially in the Trump years. We've seen these shootings that have happened at synagogues and everything like that.
Not in the Middle East, though, it's always been at 100%.
And you have a situation in which Israel's defenders constantly try to conflate those things, is that you ignore the fact that there is a significant portion of the progressive young American Jewish population that is opposed to Israeli policies. And every time you criticize Israeli policy, people say, oh, you're attacking Jews. And that's exactly what you just did. And it's not just harmful to people like me who get smeared by that accusation, completely baseless and really ugly and detestable.
It's probably more
but
true
it's
than
also,
we know, I think. But
Of Omar?
Thank you.
Probably, I think so.
Thank you for that wonderful speculation. But it's also actually harmful to Jewish communities themselves that are trying to protect themselves from anti-Semitism, to constantly trivialize that charge, that you throw it around at anybody who is critical of Israeli policy, anybody who thinks that Palestinians are human beings who deserve to have rights. You water that charge down so much when you let it around that real anti-Semites get more room to breathe and operate because that charge doesn't mean anything. So even if you enjoy smearing people like me and people who defend Palestinians, that's fine. But if you have any part of you that actually cares about Jewish people in this country, I would strongly advise you to stop throwing that smear around at people. Because
Okay. I'll do my virtue signals since you did yours.